Take 5 to 7 minutes for the CD transfer process to take place. So if it's okay with everyone, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Sure. The reason that we're changing the tape, and I know that videos are still posted on YouTube or whatnot, but the reason for the changing of the tape is we're not airing the interviews until all 4 interviews are complete. So we've now completed 3 out of the 4 interviews. So what he's doing is he's switching out the DVD, so now the rest of the meeting that is not the interview. I will call the meeting of the Templeton Board of Selectmen to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item that we have on our agenda for tonight is our town administrator interview with Fred Ventresco. If you would like to come on up. This will be our final interview for this position. We will still have a delay of 5 to 7 minutes in between the interview and the rest of the meeting, at which time you will be able to pick up updated copies of the budget. Oh no, just for the board. No. So we will be asking the questions. Thank you very much for coming out to be interviewed by us today. Just to give you some information, I know that Holly gave you a copy of the job description and what we are looking for. We've asked the same questions of all of the candidates. They'll be asked by the same selectman that asked you the questions. Mr. Columbus, because he was not previously on the board when we interviewed the other candidates, will not be asking any questions, any of the written questions here. Oh, yeah. Okay, our first question will be asked by Selectman Morrison.
Welcome, and thank you for coming tonight. So my first question is, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you think you want this job.
First, let me just say thank you for inviting me and having me this evening. I appreciate it very much, and it's an honor.
Yeah, just a little bit about yourself and why you think you want the job.
I love the profession. I've been working as a town manager, probably approximately almost 8 years experience. I want to stay in the profession. Again, I love what I do very much. Trying to find a good community, it's a good fit, which Templeton seems like it certainly is. As I always say, the main thing, that we're in this business for is one of the things I really want to do when I come in any community is I want to add value and just do the best I can for the community.
Okay. Just as a quick follow-up question, I'm not that familiar with Vermont, so the Wilmington, the town that you're currently or was the interim at, how large of a community is that?
It's approximately 4,000 population. However, it's a tourist area, so in the summers and winters it balloons to almost 15. However, that was one of my shortest tenures. It was just an interim position. All of my other, my longest position before that was a community about this size, about 10,000 and more. And before that, it was a community, just giving you a brief here, about 5,000. Though that's where the most of my time was in Wilmington. I was only there 6 months.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Selectwoman Farrell.
Hello, welcome. It's a 2-part question. The first part is, what are 3 positive things your last boss would say about you?
3 positive things. I would think, and actually I've heard this, I think one would say knowledgeable and well-rounded. Definitely ethical. I know I've heard that from everyone. Ethical. Hard worker. I'm trying to think of ones I've really heard to be authentic about it. And those are some that I have definitely heard repeatedly from former board members and individual bosses that I've had in the past.
The second part of the question is, what negative thing would your last boss say about you?
Let's think a minute here.
Take as much time as you need.
All right, I'm trying to think of... I have to imagine this because he hasn't said it to my face, so... So I have to surmise here. I know it may sound like a cliche, but maybe, I mean, not a cliche, but maybe a thing that you hear often, but it is true, I think, to some extent still, but I've controlled it a lot. Maybe a little too much of a perfectionist. I really do try. Sometimes I get really focused on something. And I don't think it would be a complaint or anything, but it might, so I can almost hear someone might maybe saying, that's enough there, don't worry about it, go on. Okay. It's the only thing I can really think of at this point.
All right, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Selectwoman Haley Brooks.
Hi, Fred, welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
If you were interviewing someone for this position, what traits would you look for?
Well, I would look, obviously, I would look for the major things first. Number one, I would want the appropriate education, formal educational background. I'd want the appropriate experience, whatever, you've kind of determined what that is, whether usually it's 5 or 7 years or 10, actually doing the job in that profession. I would also look for if there were specific skill sets that maybe the town needed at that point in time, or just maybe in general that I thought would fit well with the community or with that particular community. I also, I wouldn't maybe make this a major determining factor, but I would ask about management style. And I say that because I think they can vary, and it depends on the context in a lot of cases. But I definitely would ask that and consider it. And those are the main things that are coming to mind right now. And trying to think of the other things, the traits, education. I think that's the best thing. And you pull a lot from, the response. I'm sure you all know that from the responses you get. You'll get more to add, and you gather other things that are beyond the specific question.
I know that we had asked this in a different question, but I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about being in the public eye?
Not a problem at all.
Have you had to deal with that?
Oh, yes. In my actually more than my almost 8 years as town manager before. I worked in the public sector now for approximately 8 years, and that's a fishbowl, as we all know. We're in a fishbowl, and I don't mind it at all. And matter of fact, I think Holly mentioned a couple times tonight that there'll probably be a lot of people here, and hope you don't mind. I said, no, that's... All of my meetings have always been broadcast like this, too. But I know what you mean in the public eye in general and doing your job and how your performance is, and that. Absolutely no problem at all. I expect it from this position. I think you probably better get out of this position, this profession, if you don't want that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Our next question
Mine too.
is also Selectwoman Haley Brooks, so.
What did you like least about your last job? I know that it says, I did look at this, that you're currently employed on a temporary basis with the city of Keene. Prior to that, as Doug had asked, you were in Vermont, which you said was a small community. So if you want to relate it to either one of those.
Either one of those? Excuse me.
You're currently working, correct?
Yes, I'm doing it on a project basis. Yes, I am. Well, that was a big difference. Of course, I've been working as a manager now before that position in Keene for a number of years. So it kind of brought me back, where I had one boss as opposed to 5 or 7, whatever the case may be, or 3. So that was a sort of a transition back, getting used to reporting to one person as opposed to a number, or one as a whole, of course. But the thing I like least, I'll focus on my current, because I honestly do like everything about town and city management. I enjoy everything. I think probably is it's more, I'm more project-based there. I'm focused on right now, like doing one specific thing. I like that where you do a whole bunch of things, multitasking, which is another reason I like the town management profession, because as you know, your plate's always full with something and something different. So that's probably the one thing that comes to mind.
And why are you leaving your present job?
Well, my present one is temporary. Yeah, it's sort of a filler in. I've always been trying to get back into either town, city management, or something very similar.
And what about where in New Hampshire?
Mm-hmm. What about it?
Why did you leave that?
Oh, I left, well, I had a 3-year contract there, and when my contract came up, there were 2 board members left of the 5 that had hired me, and the ethic had changed quite a bit. And I might add that they actually warned me when I was hired that, and I knew from my research that, and again, this is nothing negative about the town at all, but, some towns turn over faster than others, and they did have a history of that. And the position actually had changed the name, too, on a couple of occasions. It was, they just had a secretary, I believe, at first, and it went to coordinator, and then I was back to administrator. So they were kind of trying to get things right, I presume, and they didn't really give a reason why. They just, at that point, they didn't want to renew the contract, and they actually wound up going, I believe, about 7 months before they hired anyone after me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Selectman Morrison.
Okay, please highlight those aspects of your background, your education and experience, that you feel have prepared you for this position of town administrator in Templeton, and that make you right for the job.
Okay. Excuse me again. Well, number one, I think this is sort of the general qualifications. Both of my degrees are very pertinently focused on public administration. And so my background formally is in the field. My experience in general, my experience working with towns and cities, I've worked with I've managed 4 now and worked in 2 others. So I have a good broad understanding of the differences, and they really were all different, and yet there were many similarities as well. So I've learned the different, the different makeups you can have, and also the things that are pretty much constant from all the communities. And specifically for Templeton, from what I can gather in my research, and of course there's nothing like always being here, but what I can gather, I think that, and very pertinent to right now probably, is I have been through a few fiscal challenges during my career as manager, and come through them very well. Always left the place in good shape. And hopefully I can say, and I don't think anyone would disagree, better than when I got there. And just looking at some of the other things, the makeup of the community, and it seems like it would be a very good fit in that. And also, I've worked in New England most of my life, so I'm definitely used to town meetings and the procedures in that respect. But those are some of the things that come to mind right off. Yeah.
Sure. I noticed your experience has been in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, none actually in Massachusetts. So having managed towns in different states, you've probably seen the differences among state government rules, regulations, those kinds of things. Do you expect any challenge or issue with moving to another state that you haven't managed in before?
No, actually, I would back up and add that to your first question. I think that's a benefit as well, or something that is a good qualification as well, because I have had to navigate and change from 3 different governments, state governments, and they were quite different. You know, people from away think that they're all New England the same, but they're quite different. As you might know, New Hampshire is a very Dillon rule type state where the state really gets involved. Maine is a very strong home rule state where you hardly state you do everything in the town. They don't care, and amongst a lot of other things. So I think that would be a benefit too. And to answer your current question, no, I really haven't had any problem navigating through the changes. One of the ways I do that as well is, like if you told me I had the job and there's usually a lag before you start, the first thing I would be doing is gathering all I can from a book standpoint. Of course, you really have to get in and do it too, but and I would be as prepared as possible. But in the past, I haven't had any problem, and I am kind of a connoisseur of government. I really love it, and I've actually done some extensive research on the differences in our great nation of the different states. And I've done a lot of interviews, a few interviews in Mass, and including for this one, so I've learned a lot of the, at least the basic things about Mass government.
Okay, just one other quick one. As far as procurement management, are you a certified procurement agent or officer in either of the other states? Is that something you would pursue here? What kind of level of procurement oversight have you had?
Well, in the states I came from, I don't really, unless just never came to my attention, which probably would be tough, as I do try to notice those things. I don't think they had really, or they either didn't put much emphasis on actually being a certified procurement person. But I've definitely done procurement in all respects, from bidding and contracting, as well as the actual procedures, within the office when someone makes a purchase or something of that nature. So I feel very competent in that area. Written many bid specs and proposals out of scratch. Also done many RFQs and RFQs to select, whether it be engineers, architects, or whoever. And then the actual procurement within, making purchasing policies and those sort of things as well.
So you've executed then construction projects under your administration?
Absolutely, yeah. Awarded the bids and then made sure that they progressed, which can also be the biggest job, as you might know, coming up with the architects and engineers and then the actual vendors and the whole hodgepodge of regulation, absolutely.
So were these large projects like a school or something like that, or?
Public works garages, one public safety facility, which included police and fire, and as I mentioned, a couple garages, and also a couple sand salt sheds up in Maine, and also a pier, actual pier we had to rebuild and gather many grants for and procure when I worked on the coast up in mid-Maine.
All right, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Selectwoman Farrell.
I think I lost you.
There is a greater public expectation that municipalities should be held publicly accountable. How would you respond to public demands for greater accountability? And how would you deal with an angry member of the public who is upset with the municipality?
Okay. Well, accessibility or accountability, I think that I'm trying to remember who asked, but we talked about the, Ms. Brooks, about being in the public eye. And I think that's close to that. I would do my best to make sure that, from the smallest things, that all of our material was available for people, easily accessible. And nowadays, of course, everyone wants website accessibility. And so I'd make sure that those were in top-notch order. And I always make myself fully accessible to residents and citizens, as well, of course, as the board, and of course, the staff and committees and everyone else. And I also think it's important, of course, and it's definitely important in this position to lead by example. So I try to show that I'm acting in that way and trying to really put emphasis on it, because I expect that from the staff as well. And just showing that I'm no different, and I'm certainly going to be up there doing the same thing as assuring that accessibility. And, being there to help is another thing, help someone find something that, a public record, and just being, as transparent as you can in that respect. And yes, I've had not mad at me, and that's true, actually, but I've had many, disgruntled people, whether it be for, whatever it could be, whether it's a code enforcement issue, which is common, or a, noise or whatever. Many, and more complicated ones than that as well.
Follow-up, how did you handle
I don't-
the complaints of the angry
Yeah,
citizen?
Yeah, very important. I think what I found in my career is one of the most important things is to really make sure that those people that come in know you're listening to them and you're taking their complaint seriously. I would want that, and I think that's important. Not that you're just sitting there and, okay, you're taking it, as they say, you're getting smacked in the face or what have you, but you're really trying to see what's this problem and can I solve it? And I want them to see that and really see that I'm truly there to solve their problems. I do my best I can. Sure, it's not going to always take place that way, but I at the very least, want them to know that I've done my best to hear their problem and do what I can, that is appropriate to help them out and the situation.
Thank you. I have the next two questions. The Board of Selectmen is ultimately responsible to its taxpayers for the financial position of the municipality. Understanding financial information and making sound financial decisions can be difficult without financial training or background. However, it is the administrator's responsibility to ensure appropriate reporting is in place to facilitate sound decision-making. Tell us, as an administrator, what financial information would you report on to the Board of Selectmen? How frequently would you report on it? And how would you present the information in an understandable way so that the board has the relevant facts to make sound financial decisions?
Well, just briefly, I've always had to do that. Finance has been fully in my purview as manager. And I always try to present financial data in a variety of ways, because sometimes someone will see something a little easier than others. So I try to, and also it makes you understand better as well, I think, to see that. So, but I follow the traditional mode. Whether it's you're using Excel or you decide to use the proprietary municipal software you have in place, I always try to make sure that I can, fully aware of all the functions and, so I can generate what I need. So again, it would be as much as I can. I always try to give more. Maybe I've always heard that too, boy, this is a lot, but I think it's important because, again, I found that everyone kind of understands things in different ways sometimes, so that's important. Frequency, by default, the longest is at the end of the month, but usually I try and do it more than that, or more often than that, I should say. But I'm also very open. I found my boards were different. Some wanted it every week, even if it was just a brief update. Some wanted 2 weeks. Some just left it up to me. So I'm very flexible, obviously, with that, and because I think that's what I'm there for, to accomplish.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sure.
You mentioned proprietary software, municipal software. What types of software have you used and have experience with?
Okay. For the big national ones, I've used Munis and SunGuard, and then a variety of software that was really popular in Maine. Trio is a big one in Maine. I've used that, and also, and I'm trying to think of the one in New Hampshire. I think it was ACS, and then they got bought out by Munis. Munis has been buying out quite a few. So I've run a variety of them, and I found that, like a lot of computer applications, they're very similar. They just got their little keystrokes and things like that are different. So I've got a good familiarity with how they function as well. You're welcome.
The next question is, how would you describe yourself and your management style? How would you produce a working environment that supports maximum productivity? Please relate your response to your working experience.
Well, I definitely consider myself, in leadership and management is one of my real areas of study I really enjoy very much, and I'm definitely a collaborative type leader. I like working in teams. I know that's kind of, everyone says that nowadays, but I've actually been doing it before. From day one, even before there were, I think it wasn't as popular as it was now. Every single book talks about that way, but I've always managed in that fashion. And I think it's important to involve the staff and work with them. I want input. I may not always, may not be always the way I'm going to go, but I need and want that input. So, very collaborative leader. Leading by example, I kind of mentioned that before, but I think that's a very important part of any leadership style is, if you've got a way that you want people to act and conduct themselves, that you should be part of that as well. And, but that's pretty much my leadership in management style, making myself accessible to everyone. The staff always knows they can contact me 24/7. Doesn't matter whether it's my cell, my home, or have you, the board as well. So open door policy, always practice those.
And if I just have a follow-up for you. Moving from a town coordinator form of government that we had where there really wasn't daily management of the staff directly. Now there's been some adjustment, obviously, with having a town administrator now that has the power to hire and fire. But you, if given the position, would be the first full-time town administrator that actually can direct employees. How would you facilitate that transition for department heads that maybe are not as accustomed to kind of being, I don't want to say questioned daily in a negative way, but are not quite as used to that hands-on kind of management?
Absolutely, and I'm smiling because I faced a very similar position when I came into one of my other positions. I had mentioned one community had changed from an assistant and then to so I've been very, and the board warned me too when I was hired. They said, everyone's working well, but they're working on their own. They're not used to the structure of having someone to report to. So I've definitely dealt with that, and what I found is, and again, going back to my style of leadership, is not something that you overnight are going to see a change to. You've got to work with people and work with the staff and get that harmony going. And that's kind of how I did it there. Everyone recognized and knew I was there and who I was for, but, they also were, what I think the toughest part is getting people to keep me up to date on things, because I need to know, let's face it, everyone expects the administrator or manager to know everything. So, that was one of the toughest things, just give me that feedback. It's not to micromanage, because I'm certainly not a micromanager, but anyway, all the things, again, it's one of those things where I think you take gently, at least at the start. If it's not moving, you may have to pick up whatever you're doing or rethink your method. But I've found that that's the best way kind of to approach it, and I definitely have been in that position.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Our next question is from Selectwoman Farrell.
My question is, what has been the most difficult management situation that you've had to handle in the past few years, and how did you handle it?
Okay. Well, let's see. I've had a few, so let me think of them. Well, one of them, and maybe it's kind of relevant to what's going on in Templeton at the moment. But we had a year right before the financial crisis where I don't know if that was really the cause of it. I don't think it was, but it was a piece of it anyway. Where we were in a very one of the communities I worked in, they kept having default budgets. I think in 13 years, 10 of them were default. And what that means is, like here, if they voted them down, what was in place the year before would continue on. So the budget had pretty much stagnated for many, many years, and we were it just got to the point, as things would have it when I got there, that it was getting to the point where there was so little funds that we knew we were going to probably go over by the end of the year. And in this state that I worked in, you actually can't overspend without the state's approval beforehand. Of course, sometimes it happens, but so we really had to bear down, and I had to work with the department heads very closely, monitor spending, make sure that we saved where we could, and so that we didn't go over. And just as things would have it, we were renegotiating a union contract at the time, and some promises had been made, for a certain amount of raises, and the board said, no way.